Food Service Power Plant Network. What's up, friends? It's Wednesday night. It's that time of the week for the hour, your dose of some inspiration, some storytelling, where we get to connect with another industry leader who shares their story a little bit different than you know them. We're not just talking about businesses and spreadsheets here, although all that matters. We get to pick the brains of people. We get to find out how they rose in their careers, how they got to positions of leadership. We get to find out the challenges they've overcome, the struggles they've busted through, and ways they've persevered. Tonight is no different. We have Brian Wood from Rabco up in Canada on. It's going to be a really special conversation. Brian's had some unique challenges, as have we all, and he's going to share his story, and I think you're going to learn a ton. Remember, if you want, take some notes. There's always nuggets, plenty of nuggets of wisdom and insight. The hope for all of us watching is that there's things to learn and ways to connect and grow. Remember, the motto is success leaves clues. And you're going to get some clues tonight for an area in your life that you might want to develop and connect. Oh, look who's on. David Richmond's in the house. Hey, Brian and Jason. David Richmond, what's up, brother? A couple of reminders for everyone watching. Okay, first, if you want us to see your name, check this out. We see David Richmond right there. David went to StreamYard/Facebook and he put in his name. That way we will know who's commenting, which is our goal. Also, I'm going to just be live on my phone so that I can see who's commenting. So if I'm looking down at my phone, it's not that I'm texting my neighbors or anything like that. We're just trying to see who's in and who's commenting. Also, you are more than welcome to ask questions of Brian along the way. I mean, Brian and I are both open books. Everyone who agrees to come join us, they're coming to be vulnerable and share their story and authenticity. So if you've got questions for Brian's journey or anything you're wondering in your own life that maybe you resonate with because Brian talked about it, feel free to ask him. We'd love it. Here we go. Boom. Fist bump. I don't know who that is, but fist bump. Let me go before I get Brian. Let me just go into the group and I am going to see if I can see the stream live and we'll be able to see who's commenting. There we go. Rob Connolly. That's Rob Connolly's fist bump. Rob, fist bump. Boom. Let's go find the man, the myth. Brian.
Hello. How are you, Jason?
I'm great, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. Listen, first, I can't wait to hear some of your story. You've accomplished a ton. You've overcome some really cool things. Your spirit is wonderful. Everything I hear about you and talking with colleagues, I do a little bit of research on my end. You're just a really respected individual who's done a lot of good. And I can't wait to share your story with our group tonight.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity of being on your show.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to talk, here's sort of the easy button. We're going to talk career journey. So, you know, right now you run Rabco, a master distributor in Canada, yes?
That's correct.
Can you real quick fill us in on, I mean, things in Canada run a little bit different than things in the States here. What is, you know, Rabco as a master distributor? Tell me what that means. What do you all do?
Well, Rabco is a company involved in, you know, selling and marketing our own brand, which is Magnum. Magnum is a product line primarily of kitchenware that is imported out of Asia.
Okay.
We also represent brands, and this is what's somewhat a little bit different in Canada than the United States, on a exclusive basis for the Canadian market. So since our inception in the early 1980s, we've had a relationship with Carlisle Foodservice Products, and we've been their exclusive distributor for, you know, coming up on 35 years in the Canadian market. So any dealer, even though you use the word master distributor, we are actually positioned at the manufacturing level in the supply chain. We sell to dealers who in turn sell to operators. But anybody who wants to purchase Carlisle Foodservice products must come through Rabco. And we have other brands. Since I bought the business, we've taken on the exclusive distribution of Dexter, Sandramar, which is part of Carlisle, and, you know, recently, which was a significant undertaking, we assumed the distribution of Crown Brands and or Oneida Hospitality Group, which was Johnson Rose was a major competitor to Rabco. So we, in essence, became one. So it's a little different. The only company I know that has a similar kind of relationship in terms of representing a brand on an exclusive basis in the U.S. is Cardinal, which represents Arc International out of France. I did the same thing when I was running Brown & Company. We had the exclusive distribution rights for Arc International for the Canadian market. So I don't know if that explains things, thoroughly for you.
I think it's great. You're sourcing products like lots of manufacturers do. They're bringing them in, and everything runs through you and sells directly to the dealers.
So when I bought the company, I mean, I've had, as you can tell, I didn't start last year. I've had a few years of experience, and I had a vision for the business where I wanted to be the market leader. When I worked at Brown for 21 years, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity and be successful in building the Canadian market leader. I was very proud of that fact. And when I moved over to Rabco, which at the time was a competitor, so when I acquired the company, I said, well, my goal is to be the market leader within 24 to 36 months. And my secondary goal is to have the biggest assortment of kitchenware and tabletop products in the industry. And, we're very fortunate, Jason. We achieved that goal in 16 months during the worst crisis that the food service industry has faced in its history. And, even though COVID has impacted all of us, there's always opportunity, where there's, through adversity, there's always opportunity. So we looked at ways to, face the pandemic, and we looked at different ways that we could be opportunistic. And we managed, I still sometimes pinch myself, but we managed to take on the distribution of the Oneida Hospitality Group for the Canadian market, which I thought, like, the code name for that in our company was Deal of the Century. So when I was, communicating with various team members and family members, I kept telling my family, I said, people, guys, this is the deal of the century. If I pull this off, this is incredible. Johnson Rose is an iconic brand in Canada. So was Oneida. And I competed with these companies all throughout my career. Initially, I actually was a customer, but for most of my career, they've been competition. And to be able to take on their brands and be custodian of these brands in the Canadian market is truly a privilege. It's an honor, and it's a tremendous accomplishment. My team, I can't believe we did it.
Brian, I love hearing those stories. I'm going to share with you some friends who are on saying hi to you. Let's see. This is Brad Ross. Brad, thanks for joining us. He's saying, Brian, so good to see you. We've got Mark Gilmore on applauding you. Love it. This is Rain Biggerman. Hey, Brian, so happy to see you. You are an inspiration to me, which is, I love these moments. I love these moments. Who's this? Chris Jeans is in the house. Hey, Brian and Jason, what's up, Chris? And Tom Stritch, love your thought process, Brian, on wanting to grow your company and be the leader. I love it. So, okay. This is awesome. We're back. It's working. I love it. Jeremy Matola's on. David Richmond's on. Okay. Thank you, gents and ladies. This is great. So, Brian, tell us about, your career, including Brown. You ran Brown for a long time. That got you to the point where on a morning in October, you chose to buy Rabco.
Okay. So I'll try and give you the high level view of 25 years of history here.
Yeah.
I started off basically my educational background is I'm an engineer. I was supposed to, my dream was to build bridges and skyscrapers, not become the spoon king of Canada. But I mean, I'm a graduate structural engineer. And when I got out of school in 1983, We were in a peak of a recession, and I happened to be working part-time for a big hardware company that had a hotel and restaurant division. And they asked me, I guess they kind of recruited me as a young up-and-comer that they wanted within their organization. And they said, would you like to have a full-time job in our hotel and restaurant division? The name of the company was called Pascal Hotel Supplies out of Montreal. And I said, sure, why not? I've been a student. I was maybe 23 years old. A lot of my friends had gone on to, start working, making money. And here I am, destitute. I said, I'll do anything. So I started off at Pascal Hotel and worked my way up the ranks very quickly. I was the contract manager doing layouts for commercial kitchens. And then I ended up running that company. I became the general manager. I was only 26 years old. And unfortunately, the hardware group, which was the bigger part of the organization, went into bankruptcy in early, 1990. And the only division that ended up making it out of the bankruptcy was the division that I was running, the Pascal Hotel Supplies. So I told the owners, I would help them sell the business. And I did that. And, I would stay for a year and then I would move on to other opportunities. And then I was recruited to go and work for Brown & Company, which was a similar company to how I described Rabco earlier. I went on to Brown in 1992. I joined the company as their sales and marketing manager, and again worked my way up the ranks to become president of Brown USA and chief operating officer of the organization. One of the big achievements of my career while I was at Brown was buying Harold Leonard and Company out of New York. Bought that company in 2003. Was a huge achievement. Normally, us people north of the border are used to big Americans coming in and gobbling us up. But, this time around, it was a small Canadian guy who turned around and took out an American icon. That was a huge achievement. And I stayed with Brown for 21 years. I had a great career there. We went from a company having a strictly Canadian footprint to having a U.S. footprint and going from a Canadian brand to an international brand. We were selling in 45 countries when I left, and I managed to part of my career was traveling, and I got to visit 65 countries while I was with Brown, and it was tremendously enjoyable. I left Brown in 2013. I wanted to buy the business, but I was not able to come to terms with the shareholders. So I decided to leave, and I assumed the leadership of RED Canada. RED Canada is a buying group, Restaurant Equipment Distributors of Canada, similar to ABC in the United States. Actually, RED was part of ABC in its infancy, and the Canadian members decided that the roster of suppliers being strictly American wasn't doing it for them, and they decided to break away on their own and form RED Canada. So I assumed the leadership of that company in 2013, and while I was there, one of our suppliers was Rabco Foodservice, and I was approached by the owner and founder, Stephen Rabkin, who I had known from my days at Pascal. I was a customer, and he said, would you like to acquire the business? And I said, I'd certainly like to, explore the opportunity. It had always been my, dream to own my own company. I was fortunate enough with both RED and Brown that even though they weren't my companies, I was given the autonomy to run them as if they were my companies, but they still weren't, Jason, my company. And now I had the opportunity to buy my company. So we started a conversation in, I'm assuming, it was early in 2018. And then I guess it comes to the point that, one of your other questions, October the 26th, 2018, a very, very memorable day for me. I don't know how to describe it. It was one of great triumph and great fear. Mm-hmm. On the morning of October the 26th, I shook hands with Stephen Rabkin in a hotel, and we agreed that I would purchase the company. We had ironed out all the particulars. We wanted to do that prior to going to legal, and we shook hands, and I said, we're going to do this. I get back to my office at RED, and I hire my successor to be the next, leader of RED Canada, a gentleman by the name of Chris Ainsworth, who came over from another buying group, which was Equipment and Supply, ESI, Equipment and Supplies International. So I felt very, very, confident that, hey, in the morning, I've shaken hands to buy the business. Mid-afternoon, I've hired my successor. I will leave the company, as any responsible chief executive does, in the best possible hands to lead the company and instill a very smooth transition. That evening, I go to a movie with my wife, and I suffer a stroke. I didn't know what was happening. Like any man, you don't really want to believe what's going on. I was fidgeting in my seat, and I just, I had some pins and needles in my arm, and my leg felt very heavy. And my wife said, like, what's the matter with you? And I said, I'm fine. I don't know. I feel a little funny. And she said, let's go to the hospital. And I said, no, I don't want to go to the hospital. I paid $16 for this movie, and I want to see the end. And she goes, well, Brian, it's not like you don't know what the end is. We were watching First Man. She goes, they go to the moon and they come back. Okay, so we can go. And I said, no, I don't want to go. Anyway, I got up out of my chair, and I could barely walk. I had to put my arm around my wife, and, she wanted to call an ambulance. And I said, no, we can get to the hospital. I don't need an ambulance. And, it started to sink in once I got to the hospital that I was having a serious health challenge. And as I said, I went from complete, glee and triumph to like complete fear, in 24 hours. I woke up the next morning, in the hospital with my family, my two sons and my daughter and my wife looking down at me in my bed. And I could not move on my left side. I was completely paralyzed. And I thought to myself, this is kind of interesting. What kind of life am I going to have now? And the next thing, I tried to gather my thoughts as my family was there and trying to console me and make sure I was okay. Then I thought, okay, I've got to make a few calls. And I called Steve Rabkin and I said, listen, I've got some bad news. I've had a stroke, and I really don't know that I can go ahead with the acquisition at this point. My whole life is upside down. The second call, I don't know if it was the second call, but another important call was to the president of RED. And she happened to come down and see me in my hospital room 2 days later. And I said, her name is Christy Barber. I said, Christy, I want you to look at my face. And I said, the mark of a good chief executive is how he handles himself in time of crisis. Okay. And I said, I want you to look at my eyes, and you can see there's nothing wrong with my voice or my brain. There's something wrong definitely with my body, but there's nothing wrong with everything above my neck. And I said, we will get out a communication to the vendors and the members immediately that, I've had a serious health episode here, but RED will continue to run seamlessly. The members and the suppliers will not be affected. And I said, remember, you hired me for my ability to talk and my ability to think, not my ability to run around the block. Okay, so running around the block is out of the question right now, but I can still think and I can still talk. And, that's kind of, that brought me up to stroke day. I continued to work, Jason, every day from my hospital bed. It just so happened that my office was right across the street from the hospital. So one of my assistants would bring me my paperwork every day. I had a laptop set up in my room. I had my phone. I had meetings with vendors coming and going, to the point where my medical team said to me, Brian, we have to have a meeting. And I said, yeah, about what? And they said, well, it's about all these people coming and going and the laptop, and like, you're running your business from the hospital here. I said, yes. Is there a problem with that? And they said, well, just in case you need a reminder, you've had a stroke and you need to recover. You need rest. And I said, well, this is for me recuperative. And my wife, took the doctor aside and she said, you don't understand this guy. If you don't let him do this, he's going to have a problem. Okay. So I spent 5 weeks in the hospital. As I said, it was quite terrifying initially. I could not walk. I could not dress. I just couldn't do a lot of things. Everything that you take for granted was gone overnight. And I went through intensive therapy. I have two great people that I have to mention on this call. One is Sam Fernandez, my physiotherapist, who worked with me, taught me how to walk. Incredible person. Sorry.
No sorries, Brian.
It just brings back a lot of, tough memories. And I met another gentleman, Don Conrad, who underwent a stroke as well. He ended up taking my bed when I was discharged, and we've become very good friends. We push one another. We're very competitive. He would tell me, Brian, I walked 10 steps today. And I would get home and say, I'm going to walk 20. And I would get back and tell him, I walked 20, Don. See if you can beat that. Okay. And we pushed each other, along this journey. And, I did spend the 5 weeks in the hospital. I made two promises. One to my family. I said I would walk out of the hospital. I would not go out in a wheelchair. The other promise I made was to the president of RED. I said, I will chair the conference in Banff in March. And they said, just get better. And I said, no, I will chair the conference. I will be there. And, we fast forward. I got out of the hospital after 5 weeks. I remember they sent a social worker to the house to meet my wife and tell them what needed to be done to the house. Put in, hand railings and, a variety of other tools and aids. And I said to my wife, just before I spend all the money, why don't we talk to Sam, our physiotherapist, and see what she thinks. And we showed her the list, and she said, wheelchair, no. Stairmaster, no. He doesn't need any of these things, Susan. He's going to walk. And then my wife thought, this is not possible. This lady, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But, 2 or 3 days prior to being discharged, I walked. And it was very emotional for me and my wife, just to be able to do that, coming from like nothing and being able to walk. I got home, spent Christmas with the family, got to see my dog. And then I had a talk with my wife, who's been great through all of this, and my family, my 2 sons and my daughter. I'm very fortunate to have a great support team. And my wife said, I want you to buy Rabco. And I said, are you sure? Like I said, this is not a joke or a game, Susan. This takes a lot of energy. And, a lot of people are going to be depending on me. She goes, you can do this. I want you to do this. So, she was really instrumental in having me make that decision. So I agreed. I invited Stephen Radkin over to the house just prior to Christmas, and I agreed to move ahead with the acquisition. In March, I did make it to Banff. I did chair the conference. It was my comeback to the industry. I was announced to the Rocky theme. I got up from my seat, climbed the stairs of the stage, got to the podium, gave a very emotional address. It was a very, very memorable night, Jason. I'll never forget it. I was back. I was standing in front of 300 or 400 people. And, you know, the industry to me is like my second family. And in Canada, and I'm sure in the United States, they all come together when someone is in a time of need. And they are very, very supportive. I received, you know, flowers, emails, texts from people all over Canada, the United States, all over the world. And I was really, really touched, because you never know what people think of you until you're lying on your back or when you're at your worst moment. And it was very, very uplifting. And as I said, it was a really, really memorable night. My family was there. They never knew what I actually did for a living, and they got to meet the people whose names they had heard for many, many years. And, you know, my son David said, you know, you really know how to make an impression, Dad. You know, like, this is like kind of, you know, huge news in the industry. You coming back from the stroke and addressing the members, shareholders, and vendors of RED. And then, of course, you fast forward to May the 1st, and I announced that I'm going to leave RED and I'm going to buy Rabco Foodservice. And again, the industry supported me 100%. Customers, suppliers, fellow colleagues, and they said, "You go do it. Good for you," you know. And it was an easy decision, you know. And it's I've enjoyed it every day since acquiring the company in July of 2019, and I haven't looked back for a second. Sorry.
First, let me just thank you for being real about your story and your experience. I really appreciate the vulnerability, and so does Kathy Langlois. This is Kathy with Zumba Group, FNS Magazine, Restaurant Technology Design. What an inspiring story. Thank you for sharing your vulnerability, is what she says. This is, who is this? This is our buddy Jeremy Matola. Very inspiring, Brian. And in terms of the industry being your second family, amen. Love our industry. You know it. Who's this? This is Brad Ross. Brad says, Brian, I am so proud to have you as a friend and a business associate. I'm going to get emotional. This is, I told you this is, I told you before, I'm like, it's okay if you get emotional, because I'm going to get emotional, Brian.
I apologize. It's just,
no apologies, buddy.
In fact, very touching memories, you know, when I think about, you know, day 1, day 2, day 3, and the fight, and you know, just trying to make, you know, again, things that people take for granted, like just being able to tie your shoes, you know, and so all the steps, and you know, it just brings back all these memories, everything that I had to do, all the hard work. And I continue to do it. I'm still in physiotherapy. I go twice a week.
Okay, Brian, a couple things that I noticed as you told some of your story. You seem to be someone who calls your shots. And what I mean by that is, in whatever challenge, we haven't talked about every challenge of your life, but in one of the biggest ones, you have this stroke. You kept deciding what the outcome was going to be ahead of time. Before you knew, you said, I will walk out of this hospital. You said, I will, you know, turn RED over successfully and appropriately. You and your wife decided. Susan, is your wife Susan?
Yeah, Susan.
You and Susan said, we will buy Rabco. It's been a dream forever. Don't let the limits of my body get in the way. This is a dream, and we can do it successfully. Is that a theme in your life, deciding ahead of time what the result is going to be and then doing whatever it takes to make that result happen?
Yes. You know, I believe you know, create your own destiny. And all throughout my life, I mean, for me, failure is not an option. And, you know, you have to be determined, and you have to, you know, set your goals and know what you want to do. And, I wasn't going to let this, it was a life-changing event, but I have to deal with the cards that are dealt. And I wasn't going to, roll up and go into a corner here. I wanted to face it head on and do the best I could, Jason. Some people, the way I looked at it was, I've been given a second chance. I was very fortunate. It affected my left side, not my right side, and I'm right-handed. So I tried to look at the positives. I also said, well, it didn't affect my speech. It didn't affect my cognition. I met people in the hospital that, had those additional challenges. And I said, Brian, you've been given a second chance. Don't waste it. Okay. And do the best you can with what you have. Okay. And, what you have is not all that different than what you had before. You just need to work hard and be determined.
I love it. You have multiple options on how you see your situation and your circumstance. And you chose to see it in a way that I think lifted you up and gave you the most energy instead of just making you depressed, I suppose. Well,
being depressed or demotivated is not going to change anything. It's, in fact, in the hospital, they were using me to motivate other patients, because there are people that undergo, tremendous frustrations and depression when they're, encounter this life-changing event, and different people react in different ways. And I chose to be as positive as I could. And, I give a lot of credit to my wife. I mean, she's, we have some, one of her sayings is, we don't do easy, Brian. We don't do easy. So, she's a very tough woman, and, she's not always, I don't sometimes find her as sympathetic as she should be, but she does it for my own good. She gives me a kick in my backside and says, you get going. Okay. So, it's just a matter of attitude and how one wants to, look at the situation at hand, I guess,
I would agree. I think what a lot of our members would agree that attitude is, maybe for me, I would say it's one of the greatest definers of any experience or result in my life and walking through things. The other thing I would say, I think your wife is chairman of the board. Is that right?
That is correct.
That's so great. There's something fun about relationships, and I would say in ours, and it sounds like in mine with my wife Shannon and in yours with Susan, where you yin and you yang. And, I think great relationships oftentimes, and we all have our struggles in relationship, but there's the ability when one person's down for the other person to understand what's needed in the moment to get them back up or get them moving or to believe in themselves or to accomplish what can be accomplished. And it sounds like you and Susan play that well.
Yeah, well, she does. She's a tremendous, tremendous help and support to me. And, she didn't sign up for this. Nobody signs up for this. It's been an adjustment for all of us, my whole family. But they've been fantastic. They've been supportive. I couldn't have done it without them. Industry people have also been very supportive and have given me a lot of strength and a lot of conviction to move forward. And, there was never a doubt that, I initially shared some doubt that I didn't want to do this, but then I thought I have to do this. It's part of my therapy. Yes, there's a physical part to my therapy that I do twice a week, but this is instrumental in my therapy. And I think if I had not done this, Jason, I don't know that I would be as successful with my therapy as I have been, and it's, I have a passion and love for the industry, the business. I still have a lot of energy, a lot of gas in the tank. I'm too young to retire. I don't want to do that. I can still contribute. And what we want to do with Rabco, or what my vision is. I mean, I shared earlier, you know, a corporate vision to be the market leader and have the greatest portfolio in Canada. But the other thing I really want to do, that the stroke really changed my life, and it gave me a different perspective on life. And what's life all about? It's about helping people and contributing. So I thought to myself, if I can buy Rabco and create my own company, I want to be able to create something special for the next generation. You know, I'm more in the twilight of my career, or as my old boss used to say, you know, you're on the slope up or the slope down. I'm kind of on the slope down now. And but you know, there were pioneers who created the way and the opportunity for me. And now it's my turn to give back, to create opportunity for the next generation. And that's what I want to do with Rabco. You know, I never knew when I was in school as a young man, you know, I didn't know anything about food service. I had no intention. I never thought I'd ever end up in the food service industry. But they always say, once you're in, you can't get out. And it's been great to me and my family. And I want to give back. I want to create opportunities through Rabco for others. And the other thing I want to do is, if the company is financially successful, which I don't see why it wouldn't be, I want to create a clinic or a foundation that provides physiotherapy free of charge to stroke patients. You know, I'm fortunate enough that I can go to physiotherapy twice a week. It's very expensive, and many people don't have the financial means to do that. And how do they get better? You know, it's sad. And I want to hopefully be instrumental in changing some people's lives and giving them the hope that they can recover through professional treatment.
Well, Brian, knowing some of your story as someone who calls the shots and decides what happens in the future and how it's going to go down, I don't have any doubts that you're going to accomplish that and help a lot of people in great ways. This is Rain Bigerman. You know him as Brian, and I call him Pitbull.
Yeah.
He is my hero, and I am so inspired by him. He is amazing. Chris Jeans. He has a bone to pick with you. He would disagree.
On this down, I don't think so.
Chris, who's this? Someone is saying outstanding. Jeremy Matola, love the vision, love the contribution and what you're doing. If you're watching, just so you know, apparently Facebook and StreamYard are having some challenges. If we kick you off again, it's not intentional. It's not like Brian and I don't like the comments. We'll get them on again, and we apologize for that. But so big things to accomplish. Let me ask you this. In the midst of all the challenges, you seem like someone who has a good amount of confidence in your ability to create a goal or create a vision and turn it into reality. Is that a true statement, generally speaking?
I would say so, yes.
Is that something that you sort of have had most of your life? Was there a moment that you accomplished something that you thought, holy gosh, I'm capable of more than I realized?
No. You know, I've always had inner confidence, but not outward confidence as a youngster and a young adolescent. And I realized early on in life that if I wanted to be a successful business leader, I had to overcome my shyness. I was very, very shy. You know, at parties or whatnot, I would always be the one in the corner and the one who wouldn't really talk or be able to make small talk with people. I know that David Richmond, who's on, will find that very funny because people think I talk a hell of a lot. But I initially was an extremely shy person. And I said to myself, you know, starting off my, higher education in university and then, embarking on my career, I said, if you want to be a successful business leader, you have to project confidence because people are not going to follow someone who's not confident. You know, like that's just not going to happen. And So I had to sort of transform myself, but I always had the inward confidence. I've always been tremendously competitive. As I said to you earlier, with my friend Don and the others, stroke patient that I met in the hospital, even my physiotherapist says, man, I never met anyone as competitive as you. I don't like to lose. Okay. Even the kids, when they were young, I wouldn't even let them win at Monopoly, like I had to win. Okay. So, but confidence is, it's a belief in yourself, right? So if you have a strong inner belief, you should be able to project confidence. And I think it's important as a leader to be confident, to project confidence.
There is something that you said is a theme that runs throughout a lot of the conversations we have with different leaders. And that theme is what you see today is something that has been worked on over time. And there were intentional decisions made to become who I am now and to keep growing. And I love that you recognize something that was not a strength in you, exuding that, being social, being outgoing, connecting with people, and you decided, I'm going to change this because this is what the future me needs to become. And you found a way to do it. I think it's amazing.
Well, thank you. I mean, I guess what drives me every day, Jason, is ever since being a kid, I have a tremendous fear of failure. And as I said to you, failure is not an option for me. And, I don't want to let down my parents. I don't want to let down my family. I don't want to let down my suppliers, my customers, my, employees. And, one of the things that was, kind of interesting when, I finally decided to buy Rabco, and my wife said, why is this a problem for you? And I shared with her this, very few people know that about me, about this intense fear of failure. And, when I was at Brown, every day I would wake up thinking, the destiny of the employees is in my hands. I think, one of the questions you would send me is, what is, something about leadership? What's
the burden? What's one of the burdens of leadership?
The burdens is, immense accountability and responsibility. I have to perform at a very high level. If I don't perform at a high level, people get hurt. And, every day when I was at Brown, I would wake up and say, 100 employees and their families are depending on me to perform at a high level. And, my family, I had to make sure I had a job. I paid the mortgage, put them through school, put them through sports. So when I left Brown and joined RED, that fear after, 45 years was gone. And I said to Sue, if I buy Rabco, I'm inviting that fear back. Okay. And I don't know that I really, it's not about the money. It's like, it's waking up every day and it is tremendously fulfilling growing the company and creating a vision and getting your people to embrace that vision. But, one of the burdens of leadership is just, as I said, that accountability and the responsibility. What did one of your famous presidents say? Harry Truman, the buck stops here. Okay. And I'm responsible and I can't make mistakes. We all make mistakes. I just got to make sure that I recognize them and take corrective action and make sure that it doesn't harm people. And, that's one of those burdens. So I did decide that I will take it on again, and go through it again and wake up every morning and have that feeling in my gut. Okay. But I still enjoy it though. It's okay. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
To me, it doesn't seem like there's any doubt you enjoy it. This is Brad Ross. I could listen to Brian talk for hours. I would agree. I cannot wait to share a meal with you someday, Brian. This is, I think one of the neat things that you mentioned about what motivates you and what drives you, it can be both things. Sometimes, what drives us is a vision towards something we want, right? Someone wants to have a really fit, I'm trying to think. They want to accomplish something, and there's this future positive vision that motivates them and drives them. But oftentimes, you're right. There is a desire to not have the negative, which drives us as well. Sometimes we choose to eat foods because they're best for our body. That's the positive. Sometimes we choose not to eat foods because we know what they could do to our body in a negative way. There's both chasing the positive and the running from the negative. And I appreciate that you've got both, and that sense of urgency and accountability is on you. I would say to go back to that, to choose to take on that burden again. It's evident that you love what you do. People who don't love what they're doing and they don't have a vision, don't hold corporate meetings in their hospital rooms. It makes you I think that's a special thing about you.
Well, like I said, I mean, things had to get done, and there was no excuse to not have them get done. And as I said to the president, that the company would continue to operate smoothly and efficiently, despite, so I'm lying in a hospital bed rather than I'm sitting on my backside at a desk. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It was my responsibility, coming back to that question on leadership, to ensure that the company continued to operate. The members depended on me, and I would not let them down.
I love it. When you look back, I want to honor everyone's time, and I know we've had a few hiccups along the way. How do you define success?
Well, it's an interesting question. You can define success in different ways. In essence, success is, I guess, achieving your goals both professionally and personally. But sometimes success isn't necessarily an established goal. It could be defined as a memorable moment, like when I made an eagle on my 50th birthday and yelled out to the world, I still have it. That was success. Since the stroke, though, I guess I would define success as in a different manner. It's finding and fully living your purpose in life, and leaving an enduring legacy of having made a difference in the lives of your family and other people. And that's really what I want to do.
I think you're doing it. Michael Kelly, Brian is a legend and a great role model in life, not just in our industry. Michael, I would agree with you. This is so much bigger than our industry, but our industry is the better for having you and for you telling your story. I mean, there is such greatness and inspiration found. Tonight is one of those nights. Brian, if Facebook kicks us off again, I will feel emotions of sadness. But before we do that, I want to read you a couple things. I like to end a lot of these conversations with comments of peers who...
Can I just interrupt you for a sec? I just wanted to answer Michael Kelly. He says a legend. Michael, I appreciate and I'm flattered by the comments, but I'm not a legend. And as I always say to my son, I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy trying to do a job, and I'm having fun doing it. But legend, I don't know that I'd call myself a legend. That's a little much.
Well, here's the good news, Brian, is that everyone else gets to decide what they think of you. Yeah. And I think it's cool that that's a word he chose, and it soak it in, and you mean big things. Apparently, you're also an amazing valet to David Richmond.
Valet?
Yeah. Apparently, you're great at lugging his luggage around China.
Yeah. Well, I had the privilege of taking David to Asia, and I took him to the Canton Fair. And I remember telling him, listen, David, don't be picking up all the brochures here, okay? Because, it's going to be way too heavy to get back. Of course, David did not heed my advice. He was like a kid in a candy store in every single booth. And the Canton Fair is like 5 times the size of NRA. He's picking up brochures, Jason. And I'm there like, David, what are we going to do with all this stuff? We have to go buy extra bags. And I had to help him get all this stuff on the plane. And lug it all over the place to various different countries because it was a multi-country trip. But yeah, I was his valet for 3 weeks, and unfortunately, David, I won't be able to perform that function right now because of my situation. Maybe that's a godsend.
That's okay. Michael says, Brian, no legend knows they are one. I love it. It comes from how you impact those around you. Who's this? This is Brad. This is Brad Ross. You are a legend to many of us. I love it. I love it, Brian. I'm going to read you a couple things from David Richmond with Chef Forward. Brian is probably one of the most well-rounded thinkers I've ever met. He looks at situations from so many angles to help him make the best decisions. He puts his people first always. Never tell him he can't do something. Not only will he do it, but he'll do amazing with it. He understands how to manage people in ways that bring out the best in them. In Canada, he's one of the most influential people in food service. He's an incredibly fair person, and he taught me how to be fair in meetings and in business. He is incredibly loyal to his friends. He is a loving family man and has a wonderful family. He is just a great, great person, and I consider him one of my closest friends. Brian O'Rourke with Oneida. Wow. B. Wood is the consummate professional. He is a focused executive with incredible vision for products and incredible with execution. He is an educator to the market on products and its materials. He is passionate to make a difference in our industry. Brian is a true gentleman with great vision. Lastly, our mutual friend, Chris Jeans. Brian is a force. It's no surprise that he bounced back from his adversity a couple years ago as quickly and as strongly as he has. I admire that he is constantly working to make our industry better. We're lucky to have him up here in such an integral part of the Canadian E&S community. One of my favorite traits of his is when he says, I find that odd, as his way of describing how he didn't agree with a decision that someone made.
I try to be polite.
Yeah, it's a great way. Well, language matters. It makes me smile and happy that I don't think he finds my decisions odd too often.
Thank you, Chris.
Brian, listen, I can't thank you enough. It's conversations like these that open doors for others to share what goes on in their lives. You were brave to be as honest as you were tonight, and we are so grateful. And you have so many people here in this community who you've touched profoundly. And so as you're looking to give, as you're looking to contribute, as you're looking to pass on, you said that's your mission at this point. It's not about money anymore. It's not about accomplishments. It's about giving back. And it's because you love it. Frankly, my encouragement to all of us and myself, I try to chase my joy. I want to go where I love something because I know that feeds me. It gives me energy. It gives me more energy for my family who's in the other room. It gives me more energy for my colleagues, for myself. And I think you're an incredible example of what that looks like.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Jason, it is about giving back at this point. I told everybody, because, some people jokingly said, don't you have enough money? Or, that was when I bought Rabco. And then when we took over Oneida and Johnson Rose, they go, when's enough? And I said, well, it's not really about enough, and it's not really about money. It's about, building something, as I said to you earlier, that's very, very special and very, very interesting. And, in business, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward. And I don't choose to move backward. And, it is about, at this point in my life, it's about giving back. It's about creating something special. And I enjoy doing it. Like, I really do. And as I said to you earlier, the food service industry has been very good to me and my family. Chris is on the show. his dad was a fantastic mentor to me. He was the first Canadian president of MOFSI. He's one of the pioneers who, you know, laid the path for people like me. And now it's my turn as, you know, if you want to call me a leader or a senior ambassador in the industry in Canada. I'm flattered by that, but it's my responsibility to create the path for the next generation. This is a tremendously, satisfying industry. I've made my whole career in this industry, even though, as I said to you earlier, I was supposed to be building bridges and, skyscrapers, not selling spoons and pots and pans. My wife always says, I don't understand how you can do what you do, Brian. You have no taste, and you don't know how to cook even craft dinner. So how could you be doing what you're doing? And I said, I don't know, Susan. I guess it's just a God-given talent. I really don't know. Okay. I wonder about it every day. Okay. But it's not something that I envisioned when I was in university studying calculus. But, they say life, sometimes creates some interesting detours for you. And so I took a little detour, and I started off in the food service industry and never left. But I don't regret it one bit. I'm so happy to have been part of this industry and embarked on this journey. And I wouldn't trade it, my place right now, for any other place in the world. And I'm going to, live out my career at Rabco. We're going to buy other companies. We're going to buy someone in the United States because I want to return to the U.S. It'll be up to, I have 2 children in the business, which is tremendously satisfying. I never thought I would ever work with my children. And it's been great, very, very fulfilling. And it'll be up to them and others to continue on to grow the company. But, I'll set the course and set the vision and, hopefully mentor them. And then it'll be time for me to step aside.
It sounds brilliant. I love the vision continues. Chris makes a beautiful comment. Building bridges isn't limited to building actual bridges, Brian. You've built plenty. Cheers to both of you for a great conversation. Hey, Chris, love you, buddy. You're amazing. And, Chris has been, for me, one of those mentors. I love it. Chris's dad was for you something like that? He led the way. He was a mentor to you. He, I'm sure, listened, cared, gave wisdom. Chris has been that for me for the last 5 years when we were on the MOFSI board together, and certainly now personally.
Chris is, is an amazing leader. He volunteered to talk to my son because, anytime you follow in somebody else's footsteps, they have to create their own stripes, and my son is our director of sales, and they hear so many stories about dad, but I said, Dave, you got to be your own man. And Chris is a fantastic leader. He's created his own path separate, from that of his father. And one thing I admire about Chris, he's got to be the calmest guy I've ever met. Okay, you could never get a rise out of this man ever. So
true.
That I say, this is odd to me. I always, you just can't get a rise out of him. Like he's the calmest guy I know. He's the guy I would like at the helm during a crisis because nothing really phases him. I'm very honored to have gotten to know him better over the years, and I'm proud to call him my friend.
I think that goes both ways. Chris, oh, shucks. Love it. Michael Kelly, amazing conversation tonight. Thank you, Brian.
Well, thank you, Michael. I don't know you, but thank you.
That's the cool thing about these conversations, Brian. You don't know who you're going to affect. Listen, Food Service Power Plant Network, thanks for joining us. Sorry for some of the technical difficulties, but so many lessons to be learned, things to rehash. This conversation, I will post it somehow late tonight. I'll get it on YouTube so anyone can watch it. And Brian has offered so many gems and nuggets of wisdom In terms of
kind of looking forward to your question on motivational quotes.
Do you have one? Do you have a favorite motivational quote, Brian?
I have two of them, quite frankly. One of them is, you know, one of my interests is history. I love history. I love studying history. And I have two famous quotes. One is on vision, and it was President Kennedy's speech at Rice University in 1962 when he said, "We chose to go to the moon. We chose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard." He motivated an entire country within a decade to achieve probably the greatest achievement in mankind. And I thought that was incredible. In terms of motivation, the other speech I find very interesting is Winston Churchill's address to the British House of Commons in 1940, when England was facing a very, very bleak period. And he went on to say, "We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. And we shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender." I thought he picked up an entire country when they were looking at their darkest moments. These are two guys that are tremendously famous, politicians, but icons. And those are my, I guess, motivational or visionary speeches that come to mind that I find very memorable.
Brian, knowing those are the quotes or the moments that inspire you, I think you'd probably be a great person to follow in a time of crisis as well. This has been really, really special. Food Service Power Plant, you're doing it. We are epically proud of you. If there's any nuggets tonight, don't be afraid of fear. Fear is something that drives Brian forward. Fear is to some degree just a part of life. Let it motivate you and move you forward. Use it as a tool, knowing where you want to go. Start calling your shots. Decide what the outcome will be now. Brian decided he was going to walk out of a hospital, no matter what anyone told him, and he did. So start figuring out, what are those things that you've said in your life, perhaps, "Oh, I'm going to find a way to make it happen. I think I'll keep trying," and maybe stop trying a little bit and decide what's going to happen. Write goals out on a board, maybe build a vision board. I've got a vision board back that way in my office of pictures and quotes and words, knowing where I want to go. Listen to Brian's feedback. Keep going. You're stronger than you realize. Remember, we're doing this together in community. That's why these conversations happen. So you can learn from our other members, our other industry colleagues, to find out what they've gone through, the challenges they've overcome, and to gain some wisdom in our own lives. So epically proud of you all. Brian, thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Jason. And, it's been a real privilege to be on your show and share my story. If it helps people, that's great. And if anybody wants to talk or reach out to me, I'd be more than happy to, have a conversation. And if I can help you out, it would be my pleasure.
Brian, I love it. What's the best place for people to find you? Is it LinkedIn, and go find your contact info on LinkedIn? What's the best way?
I guess LinkedIn is one of them. And, I can, I don't know how to send out my email or my, phone numbers and whatnot at Rabco, but, they can reach me through Rabco or through LinkedIn. Yeah.
Got it. And you can reach out to me, and I can give you Brian's email too if anyone wants it. Brian, thanks for offering that to the community for sure. Everyone, keep rocking. Keep going. You've got this. Have a great night.
Thank you.